Well, hello there. Is it episode 19 of the Classical Guitar Composers Podcast you're looking for? Hosted by me, Chris Hales? Then you've come to the right place. Welcome, my friends. I'm glad to have you joining me for yet another episode of the show where we get to hear classical guitar compositions from around the globe, submitted by you, the listener. If this is your first time joining me, this is a show that features listener-submitted original classical guitar compositions, and it's where you can have your original composition featured and heard around the world. All you have to do is send an MP3 recording to chris@classicalguitarcomposers.com. You send me an MP3 of your music, and I play it on the show. It's that simple. So sit back and get comfortable, and prepare to hear some great guitar music. It's becoming increasingly apparent that I really need to get a format down for this show. I have I'm coming in just cold. I have no idea what I'm doing today. What happens a lot of the time when I record this show is, I'll have a few things on my mind. Maybe even, like sometimes I'll write down an idea of something I might want to talk about on the show. And so sometimes I'll sit here and then I'll carry on worrying that it's going to be a really short episode, and then I end up cutting some of it out because it went too long. And so what happens is I don't remember sometimes what I've talked about and what I've not talked about on this show. I need to keep a database of topics that I have covered. But I don't think this has come up before on the show, but I was on YouTube recently, a while ago, but a recommended video for me popped up, and it was like an orchestra playing a medley of Iron Maiden songs, and it was an orchestral medley of Run to the Hills, The Number of the Beast, and I think Fear of the Dark. So it was a orchestra, but then they also had like an electric guitarist and a drummer in one of those fiberglass boxes on stage with the orchestra, and I didn't like it. And I've realized I really don't care for these rock symphonies for the most part. Once I heard a marching band playing Sugar Magnolia by the Grateful Dead, and it was really cool for about 30 seconds, and then you start to realize that there's not a lot of variations in these songs. And as much as I love this music, as much as I love Iron Maiden, I don't think it translates to orchestra well. I don't think I've ever heard an orchestral arrangement of any kind of real popular tune that I've really liked. But the reverse often works. Some songs, not all, but there are songs that can be transcribed and can work really well as, say, a classical guitar piece. I've done one myself. I did Ozzy Osbourne's Goodbye to Romance. I did a classical guitar arrangement of that. It's actually on my YouTube page if you're interested. I've got a video of me playing it. But even that one, I like my arrangement, but I did the entire song, and I was like, maybe, it's pretty long. I think maybe I should have cut a verse or something, but yeah, I think it can work really well that way, but I do not like, I don't really like when they take pieces for a soloist and transcribe them for orchestra, and it's when the source material is pretty small, it's often boring to me hearing the full orchestra. I mean, I guess here's actually a good exercise in studying composition, where you take an orchestral piece, say take a symphony, and you transcribe it just for piano. And I don't mean like arrange it so that it's playable, but you just take all of the notes and translate them onto a treble and a bass clef, and you see, it's really not as big as it sounds, So, I mean, I guess in theory that should work to take a solo piece, but I just don't. I don't like a lot of the arrangements I've heard of stuff like that. A good example would be the Romanian folk dances by Bartok, which were written. They're pretty just kind of small piano pieces. Somebody, I cannot remember who did it off the top of my head. I don't remember his name, but I played them when I used to play violin. But someone arranged them for violin and piano, and that arrangement is stellar. That is the best version of those. They're gorgeous. But then there's another arrangement that's for full orchestra, and I think it's boring. I'd rather hear it smaller. So yeah, these rock symphonies keep popping up on my YouTube page, and I need to stop clicking on them because then more keep popping up. It just doesn't do it for me. I guess it can serve as a good, it might bring more ticket sales to the concert for the orchestra, people who wouldn't normally come. So I can see why they do it, but it just doesn't do it for me. All right, well, I have a very good show lined up for you today as far as music goes. Topic-wise, like I said, I don't fully know what I'm going to talk about today. Maybe I just shouldn't. Maybe I should just go straight to the music. No, we have some good stuff for you today. I'm going to be how about something good coming from Minnesota? I think it would be nice for us all to hear something nice coming out of Minnesota, and that's what we have today. We're featuring the music once again of David Malmberg. Now, David Malmberg sent some music to the show very early on. He's in one of the early episodes, or two of them, I think. He sent me music that I ended up splitting up over 2 episodes. Really good music, and we have some new stuff by him today we'll be featuring. And I'm very excited about that. But more on that later. I also have some emails to read. So why don't we go ahead and do that? Let's jump into some email. So here's an email from our featured composer in the previous episode, Martin Slater. Martin writes, Chris, thank you so much for your Cast 18, which has featured numerous contributions from myself. These pieces have waited a long time before being given this incredible opportunity for sharing with the wider world. As I have said before, music is nothing without an audience. Indeed, I nearly lost the whole lot in the 90s. In this, I nearly joined the club of Barrios and Villalobos in an unwanted manner. Martin, I'm not quite sure what you mean. What is the club of Barrios and Villalobos? You're going to have to elaborate more for me. Are you saying your music had no audience? Did theirs go without an audience for some time? You know, I really don't know much about either of their lives, to tell you the truth. Yeah, you'll have to elaborate on that for me. I'm curious. I did notice there's that streaming website called Tubi TV. There's a movie called Mangare that is about Barrios. I don't know if it's any good. I haven't watched it yet, but I'm curious. Yeah, I really don't know much about him. But he's a great contributor to the classical guitar, a very important figure. Maybe I should not be admitting over the airways my ignorance. I do not profess to be an expert, though, just a enthusiastic guitar player and composer. Martin goes on, regarding the different keys, Manuel Ponce has already done this in the original pre-Segovia edition of his 24 Preludes. So Martin is referring to, I was saying I'd like to write a piece in every key. As you said, Segovia could be very opinionated regarding pieces written for him, and that is very much the case here. His published edition was 12 cherry-picked preludes, with 2 also being transposed. Yeah, I've heard these, and he liked to do that. I actually have a recording of the entire set. I think I have 2 different recordings. I like Ponce, which, is that how you say that? I always called him Ponce, but my teacher insisted it was Ponce, so we're going to go with that. He has a piece called Vespertina, and it is not a commonly played piece. I don't know how available it is, so I had a hard time tracking it down, but I was actually able to find the score. I have a recording by Adam Holtzman, and that is the only one I've really ever been able to find. Granted, this would have been about 8 years ago when I was looking for this, but at the time, I could not find the sheet music to this piece to save my life. I couldn't find recordings. I almost attempted to write an email to Holtzman asking him where he got this music, but I didn't because I don't know him. And my teacher suggested going to the BYU music library, so I was a student at the Utah Valley University. Just down the road is BYU, which is a much more famous school. That's where a friend of the show, Parker, studied. And I've made it like a lifelong thing that I don't care for BYU, and I kind of make fun of them. And, because I live right in the middle of it. I'm surrounded by BYU fans. I have been all the time, all my life. But my status as a UVU student enabled me to go to the BYU library, and my teacher insisted they would have it. He said they had everything, and they had it. So I obtained a copy of Vespertina by Manuel Ponce, and that is an incredibly beautiful piece. It's really, what is the word? How would I describe this piece? What did they call that? Where in the around the turn of the century, like Debussy did this a lot, but they wrote their harmonies in fifths and fourths a lot. They kind of abandoned thirds, which gets old to me pretty quickly. But there is a lot of cool music that came out of that. A little bit goes a long way, but a little bit can be very tasteful and nice. But Vespertina is a great example of that style of writing. It's I cannot remember what they call that, but anyway, and then it ends with just the ending is phenomenal. It's it has an almost improvisational feel. Anyway, I recorded it. I have a recording of it, of me playing it. So there's actually two that I know of, but of course mine is not officially released and doesn't fit the show, so I'm not going to play it on the show. And it's not on video, so I'm not going to put it on YouTube. So I'm sorry, you're not going to be able to hear it. But it's not a public domain work anyway. But it's a great piece. If you can find it, I suggest checking it out. If you really want to hear it and you can't find it, email me. I'll send you my recording. But yeah, I was able to track down that Ponce piece. Anyway, the 24 Preludes. Yeah, I have a couple of recordings of those. And they're both complete. There's all 24. I'm not sure if they used Segovia's transpositions or not. It seems to defeat the purpose of it if you're going to do all 24. Did they actually? I don't even know if I realized that. Are they in every single key? There is the 36 Caprices by Legnani, and there is at least one piece in every key from that set. That's a pretty cool little set of pieces. I like those. They're interesting. Some I think are pretty cool. Some are kind of composition wise they're fine. But some of those are really cool. The trouble I have with those is discipline. They're difficult. I mean they're supposed to be like, I believe he was attempting to do like the Paganini caprices, right, for guitar. So they're intentionally difficult, and they're gettable though. I think most of them anyway. I've read through them all, but I haven't added them to. I haven't seriously like worked on one. Anyway, moving on. Martin continues. I have been familiar with both sets for years, but have been working on Segovia's version, as my society's theme night recently, before the social chaos hit, was Segovia. I have a CD of the complete version played by Horst Klee, and yes, some of them are very short. Number 4 is 13 seconds, and number 23 is 7. But it is the only example I know of where this has been achieved in guitar music. This aim of the composer has, of course, been totally lost by Segovia's butchery to satisfy his own performing ideas. This is the difference between the composer's conception and the performer's notion of what an audience will accept. Well said, Martin. And I think you just answered my question. It sounds like he did do those with the intention of writing in every key. Martin goes on. Regarding my Cubase, it is way out of date, version 6, but I have emailed Steinberg, the publisher, to see if there is any way of properly updating it without starting all over again. I will get to grips with it. All the best, Martin. P.S. Apparently Hans Zimmer uses Cubase, so it can't be all that bad. Oh boy, okay. Are we calling Hans Zimmer a composer on this show? I'm just kidding. I gotta tell you, we all have our opinions. I just don't. Mine, often unpopular with friends and family. He's not my favorite. My older daughter likes Hans Zimmer. She really likes film music, and I really don't. I often make fun of film scores, and particularly Hans Zimmer, which makes her mad. It's kind of funny. That's not to say that all film music is bad. There's some good stuff, but it lacks something for me in that the music is being written to fit around something else, and it's fun to do. I just don't find it fun to listen to, like without the movie. I can really get into the music as I'm watching a movie. But if I listen to the soundtrack, it does almost nothing for me. Like I have the soundtrack to Star Wars. I love the music to Star Wars. I don't ever listen to it, ever. I don't even know why I have it. Like, you hear that opening theme of Star Wars, it's pretty cool for a second, but if you just keep listening, it's kind of random. You know, I appreciate something with some form for listening purposes. Anyway, all joking aside, thank you, Martin. I appreciate your many contributions to the show. You've got the conversation going today. I really needed that boost. I just came in with no plan. It's kind of crazy times right now, and I hope this show provides a good distraction and a place where, all of our differences aside, on this show, we're all just music lovers, and we're here as music lovers, and that's what we're going to talk about. So it's a nice relief for me. I hope it is for you as well. So yes, thank you, Martin. All right, I have another email here. This one is from, I would imagine the name's pronounced Marson. Might not be totally relevant to the show, but he emailed the show, so it says, "Hi, Chris. Listen, I found your YouTube channel, and I found the Vivaldi Spring Orchestra arrangement. I really appreciate your work. I was looking for something like this because I wanted to practice the guitar on top of this. I also play the violin. That's why I love some classical music. I hope you are doing well, and I hope you will find my email. Is that a MIDI or the real orchestra? Respect, bro." Well, thank you. I would love to hear you play the spring on the guitar. That'd be really cool. So I'm glad to hear that. It's not an arrangement, it's just a recording of Vivaldi's stuff. I just recorded it. It's no arranging necessary, just exactly as he wrote it. And yep, it's MIDI. But thank you, Marson. Okay, and I'm just going to continue through the emails as they came. Here's another one from Martin Slater. This one is regarding the Brahms conversation that came up in the previous episode. "Chris, maybe you have heard of the term Brahms and Liszt? This is generally used to describe an unresolvable conflict. In this case, essentially the rather abstract approach of the former against the inflated romanticism of the latter, who was actually Wagner's father-in-law, even though they were actually contemporaries. I think the problem you have with Brahms is that his music is generally not melody-based. In fact, the dedicatee of his violin concerto actually refused to play it, complaining that other instruments had all the tunes, whilst he, the soloist, had none. He did, however, concede to melody in his Hungarian dances, which were inspired by his protege, Antonin Dvorak's success with his Slavonic dances. Other than that, Brahms was very self-conscious of following Beethoven, which is why he took about 20 years to complete his first symphony, which in the end actually included deliberate quotes from Beethoven. I think there may be guitar duet transcriptions of some Hungarian dances. And so my classical music ephemera continue to flow. Martin. So Martin's referring to me mentioning that Brahms just another composer that just doesn't do it for me, and he's truly one of the greats, at least as regarded that way, and I cannot deny Brahms's innovation and his talents. It just, a lot of his music just doesn't move me, and yeah, you may be onto something with the lack of melodic lines. He's very much into like colors and moods. I think for me it's just well, I don't know. I don't know if it's the lack of melody. I really can't put my finger on it. I have always liked the Hungarian dances, so maybe that is the case. I think they were originally written for 2 pianos, and I do prefer them that way. Another case of them being expanded for orchestra, I don't like it as much. I had a teacher who had an interesting theory about Brahms' quotings of Beethoven, and I don't remember what symphony it was in. It might be the first one, but where he quoted the Ninth Symphony, but then like resolved it with a plagal cadence. And my teacher's theory was that he was saying, see, Beethoven's suggestion that the brotherhood of man was the solution to life, the universe, and everything. And Brahms was suggesting perhaps you need to look higher, up above. So, not being it was very fascinating when I learned that, but not being the biggest enthusiast of Brahms, it hasn't stuck with me, and I don't remember for sure what the exact situation was. But I basically just summed up my response to Martin, which I had emailed him, and then he writes back, Chris, more to add, when Brahms was accused of plagiarizing Beethoven's Ode to Joy in his First Symphony, Fourth Movement, he stated, any fool can see that. However, the use of the plagal cadence is more subtle and is new to me. Thinking about him, I believe his philosophy was music driven by textures, particularly in orchestral scores, with melody being somewhat secondary. From what I know of the subsequent directions music took, you might view Schoenberg's Second Viennese School the ultimate synthesis of that trend. Edgard Varèse's blocks of sound might also be an alternative result. Personally, I view both of these trends as dead ends. Regarding Brahms for guitar, Bream and Williams play an arrangement of his theme and variations, Opus 18, on their live album of 1979. Martin. Couple of things you brought up there, Martin. I have to agree with you on the dead ends. Yeah, Schoenberg thought that he was advancing German music, I believe specifically, and that he was taking this the only way there was left to go. Now, it's been a long time since I studied this stuff. Did Schoenberg, is he the inventor of the 12-tone approach? I want to say he was the first to do that. I could be wrong, but when I was talking about that kind of Debussy style with the very hollow harmonies that are built on fifths and fourths, I was saying a little bit of that goes a long way. I would say even less goes a lot farther when it comes to 12-tone music, and I would not describe it as pleasant. I've brought this up. I know I've talked about this on the show, though, so maybe I will just backpedal right now and let's not go down that road. But really, like, do you ever drive in your car and listen to Schoenberg? like, okay, I grew up in my hometown is a bit of a hick town, and what everyone liked to do on Friday night was get in your truck and drive up and down Main Street, whistling at girls, showing off your truck. I mean, that's what people did. I'm not saying I did this, but that's what people did. Can you imagine somebody like pulling up in his truck, blasting some of that really weird vocal stuff that Schoenberg wrote. Hey, baby, hop in my truck and we'll listen to some of this Pierrot Lunaire. Ugh. I just don't get it. I really don't. And that's what people say. Well, you just don't get it. That's right. I don't. Maybe there's better stuff. I mean, my knowledge of classical music is probably. I mean, I do not profess to be an expert. It's limited to what I like and what I had to study in school. So, like, I have not immersed myself in the world of classical music in the early 20th century, other than what I've come across and have learned and enjoyed, and then of course all the great guitar music that we have. So there, I love that period of classical guitar. So maybe there is good stuff, but like even like atonal music, I'd rather hear a classical guitar play atonal music than an orchestra. You know, and maybe that's well, I mean that's a taste thing, I guess, but it just stuff feels even worse the more instruments get put on it. Even combos. Like when I was in college, I entered a competition for writing a woodwind quintet, and I wrote. I've maybe talked about this before. I don't know, but I took runner up, which I'm still not happy about because my piece was the best piece. It was better than the winner, but that's okay. One of the judges, there was three judges, and all three judges had music performed at this concert, and one of them, who, there, okay, so you had the judges. Actually, now I'm not so sure they were the judges. There were the judges, and then there were the guests. Like the winner and the runner up got to have private lessons with these three guest composers that came. I don't think they actually were the judges now that I think about it. But the one that gave me the weirdest lesson, and I mean weird as in like there was no lesson. It was just him asking some questions, and he was a very eccentric personality. I would describe him as just very much caught up in his own hype. I don't know. Anyway, his piece was what he might describe as challenging what you might think music is. Let's put it that way. He's trying to challenge you with this music. When I write a piece, I'm not trying to challenge you. I'm trying to entertain you. Really, I'm trying to entertain me. I'm trying to write something that I would enjoy listening to. And that's why I listen to music. That's why I play music. I don't do it to challenge my foundations of what I believe music can be. What is art? All those stupid questions. That does nothing for me. My grandpa was at that concert, and he dubbed that guy's piece as the faucet dripping in the men's bathroom. And that's about what it was like listening to. And it was for a woodwind quintet. All the music was written for woodwind quintet. So it was a night of woodwind quintets. So hearing five woodwinds pound out atonal music was excruciating. The piece that won, the one that beat me, it was tonal. It was a nice piece. She did good. Good for her. It was a nice piece. Mine was better. It really was. Anyway, yeah, dead ends. Those are dead ends for me. I don't care. I just... It is the side of academic music that I just don't care for. And I guess maybe the other direction is like film scoring, which also doesn't do it for me. Maybe I'm just hard to please. Maybe I'm the problem. Oh, and then the other thing Martin mentioned was the recording of Breams and Williams playing the theme and variations. I need to hear this, so I didn't know that they had a live album together. They have the two albums. There's one called Together, and then there's Together Again. And I love both of those. I didn't know they did a live one, so I've got to find this. Those are great. What a great guitar duo. I mean, that's kind of legendary. Breams and Williams, that's pretty amazing. I really admire both of those players. John Williams sometimes, well, both of them really. Sometimes they uh, interpret pieces weirdly for my taste. John Williams, like I swear he has something against dotted 8th to 16th note rhythms. Like there's times where like when he plays the second movement of the cathedral, he plays that dotted rhythm as straight eighth notes. I don't know why. That's one thing I don't like that he does though. But I also know like he played Sevilla by Albéniz that way, and then it was on his DVD. I can't remember what it's called. I can't even remember who it was talking to him. It might have been I don't know, somebody who knew their stuff on Spanish music, but said that emphasis on the dotted rhythm was actually really important for the dance. So Williams started playing Sevilla with the dotted rhythm. But that's probably the Segovia influence, is what I'm going to attribute that to. But anyway, what a great guitar duo. And Julian Bream is, man, he's really up there in age. And he's still going. He doesn't tour, but I read an article, interview with him a few years ago where he was saying that, he feels like he plays better now than he ever has. So I hope that's true. Good for him. So, thank you very much, Martin. As always, I very much appreciate your contributions to the show. Next email comes from Justin. I'm sorry, Justin. I don't know how to say your last name, so we're just going to go for it here. Email comes from Justin Baranuk from Winnipeg, Canada. Hi, Chris. I've started listening to your podcast on Spotify. I'm enjoying the show. Keep up the good work. I will write again soon. Regards, Justin. Thank you very much, Justin. I'm glad to hear that. I wasn't that it's coming through on Spotify. I don't use it, so it was a little confusing getting the show up on Spotify in the first place, but I've had a few people say that that's how they listen to the show, so I'm glad to hear that. I did notice something on YouTube recently, so I don't think very many people consume this show on YouTube. Like, maybe 2 people do. I don't know. Most of the listens come through just your standard podcast streaming sites, like iTunes and whatnot. But I did recently find out that YouTube is like, because some of the contributors, their music is copyrighted. YouTube, I guess, has an algorithm scanning for that, so it's found that there's copyrighted music in these episodes. It's actually like blocked some episodes, and that's fine. But if you are listening to this show through YouTube, you might not be getting the whole thing. You might want to try something else. So, anyway. Let's see. Oh, I forgot about this one. Okay. Martin sent me another email, unrelated to the show, but kind of related because of what I talk about. But he said, Chris, if you don't already know about Max Brooks, I think your interests in horror and sci-fi are in for a whirlwind journey. Enjoy. And he sent me this article. When I read that, I just automatically assumed Max Brooks, the composer. Oh no, that's Brooke, right? Max Brooke? Anyway, Max Brooks. Son of Mel Brooks, which I didn't know. So here's my knowledge of Max Brooks. I tried to read World War Z and I didn't like it, but I thought the movie was very good. But yes, I actually need to look at this article, Martin. That one slipped through the cracks. Okay, Martin also sent me an email about that Diabolic Caprice, and he sent me a video. So in the previous episode, I was talking about comparable versions of that one, and he sent me a fairly newer recording, at least a newer video of it, with the guitarist Jeremy Juve. I'm sure I'm saying that wrong. Where he played something a lot closer to the original version. I really like it. It's very good. So that's maybe I really need to keep my topics current because last I had looked up that video on YouTube, that one doesn't exist. There was one by, is his name Tampagnelli or something like that? I can't remember, but he did basically the original version, but it's an awful recording. It's like recorded off a crappy video camera or a cell phone or something, I don't know. Yeah, I've kind of moved off the Diabolic Caprice for a while. I actually was looking at this. I realized I'm working on these two sonatas. I've been playing the Giuliani Sonata in C, something a little easier, but very nice. I really like Giuliani's Sonata in C. It grows on me more and more all the time. And it's very playable, which sometimes can just be nice. And yet it's kind of hard at the same time. It's deceptively difficult, but playable. And I've been working on the one I mentioned last time as well, the Taroba Sonata Fantasy in A minor. And I was thinking that'd be kind of fun to program a recital of sonatas from the different eras. So you could do like a Scarlatti sonata that's like a single movement, right? You could do a Bach sonata, and so on from the different eras. And I was thinking, so I've got the Giuliani Sonata in C, and I'm playing the Sonata in A minor by Taroba. And then the only Bach sonata I've ever worked on is Bach's Sonata in C, which is the third one, the one for solo violin, but transcribed to guitar. And all three of those Bach sonatas are really good. 3 is always kind of... I really like the G minor one too. The A minor would be my least favorite. But anyway, the one I've worked on guitar is the one in C. I've played the first and the fourth movement. And I realized, so that would be a sonata in C, a sonata in C, and a sonata in A minor. So not enough variation in keys, I think. So maybe it wouldn't matter, but it bugs me. It would bug me as soon as I realized that they were all in the same key. It just bugged me, and I was like, screw that idea. So it might be finally time to take on the G minor sonata. I actually used to play that on violin. It was one of the last things I seriously worked on in violin before I just put that instrument down forever. I did, however, realize there's a pretty big era that's missing there, and that's the Romantic era. And I got to thinking this, are there many sonatas written in the Romantic era? The Romantic era is pretty vacant for guitar. I mean, you have Mertz. I mean, there's a couple, right? I mean, we have what we have. But our most prominent real composers for the guitar, I don't know that Mertz wrote sonatas, did he? Tarragas certainly didn't. You got Coste. They wrote these kind of big fantasy type pieces, but I don't know of any sonatas by them. And then I got to thinking, I don't really know of a whole lot of Romantic period sonatas in general, other than the Beethoven piano sonatas. There's probably more that I'm just not aware of, but for guitar, is there a Romantic sonata? There's Ponce's Romantic sonata, but that wasn't technically written in the Romantic period. And Ponce, he still you can still hear his time in those pieces. I don't know that there is just a pure Romantic sonata. If there is one, please let me know. And if there's a glaring one that I'm gonna be really embarrassed, that's okay. I'll just deal with the consequences. But yeah, I mean, Giuliani and Sohr have sonatas, but they really living in the classical period, living in the Romantic period, but writing like it's the classical period. I guess the Giuliani sonata kind of covers both. He's kind of both eras there. Anyway, I do like that idea, though. I like the idea of programming a sonata from different eras. I think now we'll take a break and then resume with some music. Hey, like me, are you addicted to sheet music? Then let me tell you about Encoda. Encoda is an app that lets you practice, play, and perform your sheet music. It is a streaming service similar to Netflix and Spotify with tens of thousands of titles. That's millions of pages of sheet music available instantly at your fingertips. Subscribers have access to the finest editions from Boozy and Hawkes, Baron Ryder, Chester, Novello, and many, many more. And they have received praise from Sir Simon Rattle and Joyce D. Donato. And if you're not sure, you can sign up for a free trial. Download Encoda from your app store today. That's Encoda, Nkoda. And be sure to let them know that the Classical Guitar Composers Podcast sent you. Speaking of horror movies, though, real quick. I watched this one called Monster Dog the other night. My wife wanted to watch it because it had Alice Cooper in it, and we love Alice Cooper. And he cameos in all kinds of terrible movies, but this one he actually was the star of. And oh man, the movie was not great, but it had these like two songs that there's like a full music video in the movie for each of these songs, and I had them stuck in my head, and I was like, those are actually kind of fun songs. I wish I had them. And then I just thought, I wonder, because I have an Alice Cooper box set, so I pulled the box set off the shelf, which I listen to all the time, by the way. But I tend to listen to the first two discs, which are the earlier years. And at the very end of the third disc, it had these two songs from Monster Dog. I couldn't believe it. So I've had them the whole time, and I've definitely heard them because I've listened to it more than once. It's just not my go-to disc. But they were fun. Anyway, I had these songs. And I was thinking about music in horror movies. And I'm wondering if anybody knows of movies that feature classical guitar music. Besides like the obvious ones, like The Deer Hunter. But like, is there any have you ever been watching a movie and you just randomly hear a guitar piece? I feel like that happened to me recently, and I can't remember what it was. I even, there's like this memory of I was going to bring it up on the show, but I've completely forgotten about it. I don't remember what it is now. Maybe it's a false memory, but I feel like I was watching a movie and I heard and there was like classical guitar music on. There is a movie I saw a long time ago, and I'm not recommending this movie. It's like an old Grindhouse movie, and it wasn't good, but it's called 10 Violent Women. But there's a scene where they go into this bar and somebody's playing Asturias on the classical guitar, and I was like, well, that's cool. So I wonder, please let me know if you know of movies that, you know, where you that feature some classical guitar music. Okay, moving on to the music. As stated earlier, we have music by David Malmberg today. David writes, "Hello, Chris. Been a while since I have checked in with you. Hope the podcast is going well. I have attached a couple of pieces from a new album. These are fairly produced, so it may be something different to consider. Here they are. First one is called Forever and a Day, and then the second, Allegories. Both of these compositions are from my latest CD release, Mayan Morning, available and streaming throughout the world. The album was musically arranged by Mr. Victor Zuponk, two-time recipient of the Los Angeles Theater Critics Award. Forever and a Day. The phrase was originally used by Shakespeare in Taming of the Shrew. It has since become a part of our vernacular. Allegories is basically a singular motif that I play with through major and minor harmonization. Interestingly, there's a departure from that motif from A minor to E minor, the middle section, where I was heavily influenced by the arpeggiated section of the Bach chaconne. Anyways, it all might be something you can use. Stay safe. My best, David Malmberg." Thank you, David. And you as well. And of course, I'm happy to feature this music. So, as always, I'd recommend pausing the podcast and getting yourself a glass of iced tea. Or perhaps refilling. Honestly, this entire show is probably better with a beverage. And sit back and enjoy as we listen to Forever and a Day and Allegories by David Malmberg. And there it is. We've just heard two pieces by David Malmberg. If you go to www.classicalguitarcomposers.com, I'll have links to all of David's websites where you can find his music and more. In fact, there is more. I was looking up David, and I came across an article, and turns out David is also a very talented ventriloquist. And I sincerely mean, I think that is awesome. So my younger daughter has gotten really into ventriloquism. She actually, she's like been reading a book, and she practices in front of a mirror, and she's getting quite good. I thought that was kind of neat. So, and I realized David, he had sent me before two websites, and one of them led to his other. He has a music website, and then another one that features his ventriloquism, and David's very good. So, with that, we're gonna call it a day. I will talk to you again in the July podcast. Thank you all for joining me today. Okay, and then one more thing I keep forgetting to mention. It's been a while, but if you'd like to support the show and get a little something in return, if you go to that website, www.classicalguitarcomposers.com, and click on the link sheet music, there's a link where you can buy some of my sheet music. And if you've enjoyed those pieces, I'd encourage you to do so. It'd be a great way to help out the show and get a little something in return. I know I always love collecting more sheet music. And I would also encourage you to visit the various websites and links from all of our composers. There's often ways to purchase music, sheet music, recordings, and whatnot. Many of them are free of charge. So check them out. And support the show and support the supporters of the show. And with that, we're going to wrap up episode 19. I'd like to thank you all for joining me. I wish you all the best, and I will see you in episode 20. Until then, keep on plucking.